Welcome back to Full Circle Farms, and we're doing a follow-up to our hay video. The last time we did a hay video, we told you guys to, let us know if you had any questions, comments, or difference of opinion, and boy, did you all not let us down. We had a lot of comments, we had a lot of questions, and all that was good stuff. There are a lot of good questions in there. A lot of good points were raised. So we're going to go through some of that in this video and try to tell you what we decided to do, what we're going to go forward with. So y'all stay tuned and hope you enjoy it.
What y'all said in the comments. Put a slip clutch in the driveline. I'll be waiting to see the fix.
Okay, so here's the completed repair, and what we've got here is the slip clutch clamped right onto the remaining shaft. We had plenty of shaft to allow for that. So it comes up to here, and this is the special coupler that we made. So this was the 1 3/8 smooth with a keyway. Right here, it's been welded together right here. This center section was the part that we made on the lathe, and it adapted to this 1 3/8 by 6 spline section right here. So that's what all that looks like installed. Now this pipe has been reinstalled, but it's not large enough to cover our new coupler. So I had to take and cut it back with a skill saw to shorten it. But it goes through the twine box here, so we're still protected here. We're not going to get our twine or anything tangled up in that shaft. So all that's good there. And here it goes all the way up and hooks onto the tractor there. I don't like this just spinning around back here in the open. I would rather this have a shield of some description, sort of at least covering this up from the sides. I've looked. There are some, you can purchase some PTO shields. I don't have a ton of clearance between this clutch and that spring, maybe a 1/2 inch. But I think that's going to be enough to allow one of those flexible rubber shields. So I'll get that ordered, but I want to use the baler first and try it out. This clutch was rated at 40 horsepower. The baler is supposed to be able to handle to use with the tractor as low as 30 horsepower. So if this transmits 40 horsepower, then it should be more than enough to run this baler, and we should be in good shape there.
What y'all said, if you had moved up to the next size Heston baler, it has a slip clutch.
Okay, so this is true. The next size up baler from this one, I believe, does come from the factory with driveline protection. But we bought this baler for Henry used, and we needed a baler at the time. Now we could have, I guess, looked for a bigger one, but when you're on the used market, you don't know, how long it may take you to find. If you may spend a year looking for the exact baler that you want. So instead we bought this baler for him, and it was what was available at the time, and so we had to just take it with what it came with.
There was over 15,000 of y'all that watched our hay video. Thank you all for watching that video. It was a very good video. We put a lot into it. A lot of y'all really seemed to like it, and y'all talked about it a lot, and we was trying our best to respond to everybody. So very much appreciate that. I hope this video you liked just as much, and if it answered some questions that weren't answered in the video that you all watched after this. So thank you very much, and just be sure you subscribe to YouTube for us, and we'll keep making the videos.
What y'all said. They have a slip clutch where that keyway would be. Do not skimp on the clutch. Get the one with the 4-plate design.
As far as skimping on the clutch, it was a little harder to find a clutch that fit the actual gearbox on the baler. So we were kind of limited in what choices that we had. I had very little clearance on the diameter of the clutch. So most of the time, if I found a clutch that was bigger than the one I had, it was also bigger in diameter than the one that I bought, and it wouldn't have worked in the space that I had available. The clutch I bought was pretty much the only clutch I could get that would work on the baler. And it is rated for 40 horsepower, and the baler is rated to be pulled with as low as 30 horsepower. So if a 30 horsepower can run the baler, then a 40 horse clutch should handle anything. I think I've got enough margin there that it'll work. I haven't had any problems yet, and we have baled with it since then.
What y'all said. You are bringing other people's fertilizer and nutrients to your ground, helping your soil health.
So yes, that's true. If you buy hay, then you're transferring nutrients and things from that farm, and you're bringing it into your farm. So when I bring that hay in and feed it to my cows, it goes through. So then when we're spreading that manure the next fall or the next summer, then all of those nutrients are coming to our farm. I still feel like there is a need for adding some commercial fertilizer and lime and other soil amendments as per the soil tests. Now, it should be greatly reduced over what you would have to put if you were growing hay. You know, you shouldn't have to put anywhere near the amounts, but you probably will need to still add some fertilizer, and especially lime. Something to adjust for pH is going to be necessary.
What y'all said. If you stop hay, are you going to stop fertilizing the field? I have seen farmers overgraze the field, and they have to feed more hay because the field doesn't provide for the livestock.
Yes, we are still going to fertilize, and stocking your herd at an appropriate rate for your farm. And then the second part is doing the soil tests and applying what's needed. Not to put maybe the maximum number of cows, but it has to be the maximum number of cows that a given place can support. So it depends on soil type, it depends on a lot of different things, and it depends on how often you're able to rotate, how intensively you're able to manage it.
What y'all said. Your winters must be brutal. 220 bales for 15 cows and 1 bull.
About the number of rolls that we're feeding over the course of the year is not a real accurate way to consider the hay. The rolls that Henry's roller makes are very small. They're 3.5 foot wide and about 4 foot tall. They only weigh dry about 500 pounds apiece. So you have to go back and look at the tons of hay. So when you look at the tonnage of hay, we had 220 bales at approximately 500 pounds apiece. That's 110,000 pounds total. You divide that by the 16 head, 15 cows and a bull, and that gives you 6,875 pounds for each animal, a mature animal, for the entire feeding season. Now, the feeding season around here averages about 120 days of feeding. So if you divide that 6,875 pounds, divide by 120 feeding days, that gives you 57.3 pounds per day. The recommended for Kentucky here is a 2 to 2.5% of body weight per day per cow for a mature cow. So that works out for a 1,200 pound cow at about 30 pounds per day. But the 16 mature cows are not the only ones eating. We had, during that time, we had a lot of calves that were eating some hay as well. So we're about 17 and a half pounds more than what's recommended for the cow. But when you consider that you're going to have some wastage of hay and the calves are going to eat some hay, then it starts to look a lot more in line with what is recommended. A lot of people don't maintain a good enough body condition throughout the winter months, and that can have pretty bad consequences when it comes to breeding back and everything. If that cow if her body condition has gone downhill all winter, and it's, they calve out then in the spring, when she goes to breed back, well, her body condition is not optimal, then she's not going to breed back as quick. And if you miss a month, that's money in the bank. So we want to maintain cows in good body condition, and have that fast breeding back, fast cycling, and we want them to provide the plenty of good rich milk for the calves, because that helps us to wean off more weight at weaning time. So, if you're getting 100 pounds a month of gain out of a calf, it takes a lot of feed. But that question, it does call into focus something that we've been trying to improve on, and that is feed waste. And we're not there yet. We've got a long way to go, in fact. Here, and it's circus around here. More traffic on this road than they are out on the highway. I don't know why I didn't just go set up out there in the middle of the road.
You start talking.
Anyway, and this is an area that we need to do a lot of improvement, and that is feed efficiency. So there was a lot of hay waste last year, and we don't just feed in hay rings. Now, we used these type of feeders right here, and these were manufactured locally, and they're a cradle style feeder. So the bale of hay doesn't touch the ground. They're upside down right now. We've got them stacked down here for the summer, but there's two of them here. These turn right side up, and you can actually fit two of Henry's small rolls in each one of these. But the cows, then they reach their head through this hole, and they want to pull the hay out while they're standing here eating. So every time they reach in and pull out hay, some of it falls on the ground and gets walked on. And that's a big area for improvement that everybody needs to look at. And it's going to be crucial, especially if we start buying hay. It hasn't mattered so much when we were just going out here and baling our own fields. It does waste work and things like that, but it wasn't a crucial thing. So this type of feeder, or a hay ring, or any kind of feeder like that, is going to be given a pink slip. And he's going to have to start feeding with one of these manger style. They have to keep their head fully in order to reach the hay.
What y'all said. I frown on buying hay. No clue to the quality. I've seen 30 feet of woven wire baled into a bale already. Then the cost and the time it takes to chase hay down. That's not cheap.
You're going to have to use your senses when you buy your hay. Now, if you go to a farm and look at the hay and the guy's running a junkyard and he's baling the grass between the rows of cars, then yeah, you're going to have a bunch of junk baled up in your hay. But if you go to a man's farm and he's got a nice, pretty field of hay out here, and you know that's where he's baling his hay, then the odds of you finding 30 feet of woven wire out in the middle of this man's pretty field are pretty slim. Every once in a while, you'll get a piece of wire around the edge of a field or something like that, but that's generally the outlier. And a whole lot of your legwork can be done over the phone. You can call and talk to people.
What y'all said, it's cheaper to buy hay, but where I'm at in West Virginia, the quality of bought hay is the problem.
Most of the time, if you just use your eyes, use your nose. I mean, you can smell if hay has been put up incorrectly, if stored incorrectly. So if you go out and the guy's got a row of round bales just lined up in the fence row, and they're all black and weathered and weeds growing up all around them, that hay's not been stored properly, and it's going to have a layer of rotten hay around the outside and on the bottom where it's sitting on the ground. If you go to a man that's got his hay stacked in the barn, then there's going to be a lot less of that. So it is up to you to go and visit the person that's going to that you're thinking about buying hay from. It's going to be up to you to go and visit them, talk to them, see what they're baling, see when they bale. Do they put it up when it's ready to be put up, or do they let it get up to the chest high and already dead and stems? I mean, you can talk to the man and look at the hay that you're buying. If it's stored in a barn, if it's got good color, if it's got a good sweet smell, then you're probably buying good hay. But you got to use your head. You can't just buy whatever somebody's trying to sell you. So your extension office, your county extension office, generally has free hay testing. So if you want to, you could ask the guy if he would mind if you sampled the hay, and you could send that off and have it tested. And the university will do that, and that'll tell you a lot of information right there.
What y'all said, it's about getting quality hay for a good price and not having to chase it down. That takes lots of time.
There's a difference in cost and value. So if you go out and you buy the cheapest hay you can find, then you're going to be more likely to have these problems. Quality is not cheap. If you pay a little bit more, you're probably going to get a little bit better. But the other thing I want to mention about quality, and this is a big deal for me. A lot of people will fuss about the quality of hay. So all the hay is no good. But the cows are standing out here grazing in just plain old fescue and weeds in the pasture field. So, why do you want alfalfa hay to feed over here when you're letting your cows graze fescue and weeds every day? Your hay doesn't need to be any better than what the pasture grass is, really, as long as it's put up correctly and it's stored correctly. Those are the big items. So make sure it's put up right, make sure it's stored right. Those are your big factors.
Anybody saying buy hay either has a bomb for a farm or has no farm. I used to buy hay, then spent years trying to get rid of the thistles and the nightshade weeds I paid money for.
If you go to buy hay and a guy is selling and his farm looks like a weed patch, then you're going to bring in weed seed. If you go and buy from a man who's managing his hayfield and they're good and clean and there's not a bunch of Johnson grass growed up in them, all those weeds that you mentioned, thistles, so you should be able to see that in his fields. You can see it in the bale. I mean, when you look at the bale, you can see if it's got thistle stems sticking out of it. You can see if it's got, if it's full of iron weeds and ragweeds, you can see it in the hay.
You can't bale wet hay with that baler. Wet hay puts too much weight and stress on a baler that is not designed to handle it.
That's true in a sense. The baler wasn't designed for wet hay, but most balers weren't designed for wet hay. The silage balers are a relatively new thing. People started wrapping hay a long time before there were dedicated silage balers. It's not a new concept. People have done it for a good long time. Now, as far as it stressing the little baler out, it really doesn't. It is heavier. The bale is heavier. We've weighed them. It adds about 200 pounds of weight to bale hay green versus the dry. So I have weighed both bales. So it is a little bit heavier to carry. And the worst problems is plugging. So when you're trying to start a bale, sometimes if you're in a grass hay that's soft and sort of long and slippery, sometimes it doesn't want to start the bale. And if you let it sit in there and turn and trying to start it, sometimes it will pull the hay down between the roller and there's a bar that the bale sits on as it forms. There's a bar in there. And sometimes it will pull the hay down between those, and you just take a Sawzall and go in there and just slice it through and pull the clog out, and then usually you can start it and it'll go right on. So again, we do know that it's not made to do it, but necessity is the mother of invention. You got to do what you got to do. And this year has been a perfect example of that. We have not put a cutting up yet this year, and we're on the third or fourth cutting, I think, now. And every single cutting it's been raining. Not floods, but it will pop up and rain at least every other day, enough that you can't put hay up dry. So we've just not had any other choice. We're out here with the baler, and I wanted to have a look inside this cover and show what caused this actual failure. This baler is not designed for wet hay, and we know that. The chain had come loose in here, and I'll open this up and show the chain. So the main drive chain is this big long one that goes up through here. And what had happened was it had gotten loose, and the slack sort of draped to the side, and it ran off this sprocket. But that locked it up, and that locked the baler up. But now it could have done the same thing even if this chain had just broken and fell down in here amongst these others. It would have still locked it up. So, if that chain comes off or breaks or whatever, it's going to lock the baler up. That doesn't have anything to do with wet hay or dry hay. The only thing that I was meaning that was a bad design was the lack of a slip clutch in the factory setup. I understand that this is a budget baler. It's a bargain, like a low-end entry-level baler. A big company like Massey, their engineers are good enough that they should have included that just from the factory.
Or you could plant 7+ acres of corn and let them winter graze it. Kentucky corn has the potential to produce more than 7 tons of dry matter per acre. So we are familiar with corn grazing. Bill Holtzclaw from right here in Lincoln County was a early practitioner of that and advocate of it. But it takes a certain type of ground to grow good quality corn, and our ground is just not that good. It's clay soils, and kind of rocky and different things. It does not like tillage, and we don't want to put a ton of chemicals on to do no-till corn. So that sort of rules it out for us on grazing corn over for a winter crop. You're being kind using the federal minimum wage. Pick whatever number you like, but everyone's time is worth more than that. So yeah, that's true. We did choose the federal minimum wage on our figures, but the reason that we did that was just to basically show folks that we weren't just trying to pump the numbers up and put our thumb on the scale, so to speak, either way. So if we had put in, say, $15 or $20 an hour, then that would have made, people could have said, well, you're putting your time at too much money. Nobody said you could guarantee to make $20 an hour putting up hay. So we just thought, well, we'll go with the minimum, and that way nobody can accuse us of trying to slant the figures either way. So by using the minimum wage, that's sort of the baseline figure that everybody goes by. In your calculations, I did not see the cost of all the equipment for baling your hay. That's right, we didn't include the initial purchase cost because we instead elected to set the equipment up on depreciation, where we take a certain amount of its cost over every year over a period of years until the purchase price basically is completely gone. So it wouldn't have been accurate to include the upfront purchase cost and then still take the depreciation as well. You kind of need to do one or the other, and we just chose to take the depreciation route over a number of years rather than taking doing an expense, like a one-time expense up front. Okay, so speaking of the equipment values and things, I do feel like I need to go ahead and post here what we paid for our hay equipment. So the Massey Ferguson Heston round baler, we paid $8,000 for that. It was a second owner machine. It's by far the newest piece that we have on the hay equipment. The rake, tedder, and sickle bar mower were all bargain items. Like we didn't pay much for those at all. So $3,000, and that was the purchase price and what we invested in parts to get them back up in top shape. So I put new teeth in the rake, put some new tires on the rake, put 2 new tires on the tedder, and I rebuilt all of the knuckle bearings for the sickle bar's knife. So that $3,000 though covers the purchase of those 3 and the work that we did to them. So hay equipment, we didn't put a lot of money up front tied up in it, but it's just like anything else. When you buy cheaper equipment, then you're going to have to put more in it to keep it running. So our rake, tedder, and sickle bar mower were all pretty old pieces of equipment, and we do have to, we had a low purchase cost, but we've had to maintain those, and that's why you see our repair budget here every single year. We try to budget a minimum of $500 up to about $1,500 a year, just in case one of those pieces has a breakdown. We've got a little bit set aside to get it fixed back up and stay running. Another misnomer you're not fully disclosing is the tax advantage you gain with a depreciation schedule on your equipment. Well, we actually did include a depreciation on our line in that one of the slides in the previous video. It was a $750 per year line item, and that figure was just based on the amount of we paid for the equipment and the amount of years that it's set up to depreciate, and all of that information came from our tax papers, what we actually set it up and how we depreciated it. So we did take the depreciation on our equipment, and we did show it in that slide. Okay, this next comment is one of my favorites because this person's taking a bit of a jab at me personally. He says, your costs are high because of you. A $500 input shaft plus hours of labor could have been avoided with a simple $200 slip clutch at the purchase time. Putting that repair number into your math skews your results. So the $500 input shaft, that's just what Massey Ferguson wanted to replace the input shaft as it originally was designed. Now, in my original video, I said that I had about 1.5 inches of shaft left, good shaft, still protruding on the front of the gearbox that I was going to use to either install a slip clutch or possibly a shear pin setup, depending on what was the cheapest and the easiest to find or make. So I didn't actually put a $500 input shaft in the machine. All I did was look around and I found a slip clutch for $165, and I machined a special adapter that would allow the input shaft to couple with the slip clutch, and that cost me about $200. But it doesn't matter if I spent that $200 up front or now, it's still $200. I paid the same exact amount of money that I would have paid when I bought the baler. When you put it in doesn't have any effect on it. And as far as putting repair numbers into my math skewing the results, that's just not true. We had a repair budget in our figures of, I believe it was $1,200 for a year, and not including a repair budget in any kind of budget that you make for a farm is a mistake. You're going to have breakdowns and repairs that need to be done, and it doesn't matter whether they're your fault or machine's fault or whatever. If you don't include a certain amount of money set aside for repairs, then you're just lying to yourself. So this next comment comes all the way from Australia, which is pretty cool, we thought. But they say you have assumed that hay costs remain stable. It may not, depending on the environment of the day. That's absolutely true. None of us have a crystal ball, so we don't know what the prices are going to do in the future. But there are a couple of ways that you can hedge against price increases and at least unexpected price increases. So the first one would be establish a relationship with your hay producer. So if you buy from the same person year after year after year, they know you, they know that you're going to come and you're going to buy hay from them, and they're expecting that. So they're going to be more inclined to have hay available or take care of their regular customers, as opposed to somebody who just comes in and tries to buy hay just because it's a drought year or just because it's a some kind of a poor hay year. So the next way that I would try to guard against those unplanned price increases is by paying up front for your hay. Now I know a lot of people don't really want to do stuff like that, and it may cost you a little bit more money if you're buying your hay with an operating loan or something like that. Then yes, it's going to cost you a few more dollars in interest. But if you prepay for your hay in the spring when the grass is plentiful and rains are coming and all that, and you've already got your hay paid for, like the whole year's worth of hay paid for, then even if it turns dry later on in the season, he still has to provide you with your hay for the price that you agreed on in the spring. So even if it turns out to be that you're the only customer that he's able to supply hay for that year, you're still going to have your hay at that price. Now, again, if you have a relationship with your hay supplier, he's probably not going to slap a big price increase on you or try to try to price gouge even if the year does turn off dry, because again, you're a good customer. You buy every year. He expects those things. You know, he expects you to be back every year. So he's probably not going to do that to you anyway if you have a good relationship with him. But even if the year goes really south, if you've already paid for your hay, then you've already locked that price in. As an added bonus with going ahead and prepaying for the hay is he knows he's already got those bales sold. So if you can come and pick it up straight out of the field, then he doesn't have to handle it as much. So he can just load it on your trailer instead of, you know, putting it on his trailer and hauling it back to the barn and stacking it and all of that labor. If he can just set it straight out of the field, straight on your trailer, you might actually get a better price. Plus, paying up front, you know, he gets all his money at one time up front. He may give you a better price. He may give you a discount because of that as well.